Anjala Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Jena Tasmaya Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantamanapretyam Apaitikrityam Dvaipayano Viraha Tatara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Tarabo Benidustam Sarvabhutam Hridimamone Manatoshmi Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Galadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all our Rupanuga Guru Varga, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. So, continuing with our drinking this nectar from the Jaiva Dharma, and we'll first listen and discuss a little bit the Falshruti again. So if our dear Golden Avatar Gurukul can chant for us. This will be the last evening. Tomorrow evening, I'll be in Goldrum Dweep, and I'll be doing a live stream from there. So this is our last evening for the Gurukul to be here. Okay.
পৃথিবীতে যত কথা ধর্ম নামে চলে, ভাগবত পদে তাহা পরিপূর্ণ চলে। চল ধর্ম ছাড়ি কর সত্য ধর্মে মতি, চতুর্বর্গ ত্যাগী ধর নিত্য প্রেম গতি। আমি তুমি মীমাংসা ভ্রমে নিজ জড় বুদ্ধি, নির্বিশেষ ব্রহ্ম জ্ঞানে নহে চিত্ত শুদ্ধি। বিচিত্রতাহীন হলে নির্বিশেষ হয়, কাল সীমা তুল্য সেহ অপ্রাকৃত নয়। খণ্ড জ্ঞানে হেয় ধর্ম আছে সুনিশ্চয়, প্রাকৃত হইলে প্রভু অপ্রাকৃত নয়। জয় বিদ্যুৎ জ্ঞান হেয় চিত্তে উপাদেয়, কৃষ্ণ ভক্তি চিরদিন উপায় পেয়। জীব প্রভু জড় নয়, হরি প্রভু নয়, হরি সহ জীব চিত্ত ভেদ ভেদময়। দেহ প্রভু জীব নয়, ধরা ভোগ্য নয়, দাস ভোগ্য জীব কৃষ্ণ প্রভু ভোক্তা হয়। জৈব ধর্মে নাহি আছে দেহ ধর্ম কথা, নাহি আছে জীব জ্ঞানে মায়াবাদ প্রথা। জীব নিত্য ধর্ম ভক্তি তাহে জড় নাই, শুদ্ধ জীব প্রেম সেবা ফলে পায় তাই। জৈব ধর্ম পাঠে সেই শুদ্ধ ভক্তি হয়, জৈব ধর্ম না পড়িলে প্রভু ভক্তি নয়। কৃপানুগ অভিমানে পাঠে দৃঢ় হয়, জৈব ধর্ম বিমুখে ধর্মহীন কয়। যাবৎ জীবন যেই পড়ে জৈব ধর্ম, ভক্তিমান সেই জানে বৃথা জ্ঞান কর্ম। কৃষ্ণের অমল সেবা লোভী সেই নয়, সেবা সুখে মগ্ন রহ সদা কৃষ্ণ পদ।
Jai. So nice to hear you chanting in the proper Bengali meter. So we're going to read the first 5 verse translations. So as indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1-2, all the philosophies on earth that are celebrated as Dharma are utterly deceptive. So this is, again, I've mentioned every time, a huge statement that he's making. We say at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja, Mam Ekam Saram Raja, Aham Tam Sarve Palpadyo, Moksha Ishyami Ma, that abandon all varieties of religion. So the word Dharma here means different sorts of religious practices that aren't focused exclusively on devotional service. Because this devotional path is a very exclusive path. We have to be really super focused, because the nature of the conditioned jiva is he wants to exploit the material energy. That's what we're reading about in Vibhinamsa Tattva. So that nature has become, it's called nishag. This is described in the first chapter, acquired nature. And the example is given of the iceberg. The iceberg, if you speak to the iceberg and ask, what is your nature, oh great iceberg, it'll say very hard, because it's been in that frozen condition for a long time. But it's not its real nature. If a warm current comes, it'll go back to its swadharma, its original nature. It'll melt, so it's not its real nature. So we are in this conditioned, nishag place, this acquired nature. I have learned how to navigate through this material world with my material senses to find some little piece of happiness or imagined happiness. So we've learned how to do that. And then we're thinking that, yes, I must be material because I've been here for so long. Many births we've been here. So it takes time. But all the practices that are related to the iceberg, for example, or to our conditioned state are to be rejected. All of them are useless, even though billions of people might honor them. It's like now we're in deep Kali Yuga. And most people, even in India, consider that mukti is the supreme goal. But there's an expression in English that 3 billion drunks are not necessarily correct. You understand? So if all these people are intoxicated, it doesn't mean that they're all correct, because they're all saying, slapping each other on the back, saying, yes, yes, it's this way. No, it's not that way. Sometimes we have to stand up against the current of popular opinion. And this is what this first verse is indicating, that these dharmas are utterly deceptive. One should completely abandon such deceptive dharmas and absorb his mind in true dharma. In other words, one should give up the fourfold goals of material life, dharma, artha, karma, moksha, and aspire solely for the ultimate destination of nitya prem. There's an urgency here. We want to tune into Bhaktivinoda Thakur's merciful writings. He's urgently asking us, please, please come this way. Don't go that way. Don't go that way. There's an urge, because there has to be some energetic utsaha. This is the ingredient of ragmarg, this greed, this hunger. If there's no hunger, then how can you taste something satisfying? You know, if there's no hunger, you'll just nibble on it. But if there's hunger, you'll eat dry roti without any problem. So we want to increase that appetite for these spiritual topics over and above our appetite for anything material or any other deceptive dharmas. Those who are deluded identify themselves with matter. That's like those who are in that nishaga condition. They're like the iceberg is identifying itself with matter. That is their error. It's a mistake. However, one cannot be purified by such delusion by endeavors for nirvishesh brahmgyan. If you try for that impersonal realization, and most do, many people do. I'm speaking to one boy now in Germany, and he's meditating each day, and he's finding it quietens his mind. And he kind of likes Hare Krishna, but he doesn't know the effect that Hare Krishna mantra can have on the mind. So if you don't know that, if you've got no one to tell you that or encourage you that, then why not go into the Brahman? It's like, you know, the only option left if you haven't got Hare Krishna. So we all have to consider this mood to share this mantra somehow or other in our lives. The Mayavadi thinks Sri Krishna to be subject to the limitations of time, such as birth and death, and considers that he is not transcendental. We're thinking that I'm not transcendental, so Krishna's not transcendental. We can't appreciate what is transcendental. We can't appreciate transcendence. So we can't accept Krishna's transcendence because we're not aware of our own potential transcendence. Prakritam pritisadyate, that this is in potential within the heart of the jiva to realize the transcendental nature of my soul. It's there, always has been there. Thus he rejects Bhagavan's vichitrata, astonishing characteristics, paraphernalia qualities, and lila. Through this vicious attempt, he is left with the philosophy of nirvishesh Brahm, zero. When you've tasted just a little bit of Krishna consciousness, the idea of this nirvishesh Brahm is like horrific. It's like really, it's so dry. There's no lila there. There's no pastime. There's no personality of God. It's just like you and the void. Shantaras at best. Such base and contemptible gyan, which arises out of an attempt to dismember the divine form of Bhagavan, is only fit to be rejected. It is prakrita, materialistic, and should never be given credence as aprakat dham. So this Falshruti is meant to lay out what the Jaiva Dharma is about to present. And it's very clearly saying, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, my only focus the whole time is on transcendence. It's not on Brahmagyan. So right on the first chapter, we have Sannyasi Thakur, who's a Brahmagyani, just like Shukadev Goswami in the Bhagavatam. He's like a Brahmavad. But my Gurudev has explained this, and I just mention it now, that when Shukadev Goswami was in that condition of Brahmavad, that was only for Leela. Because my Gurudev speaks much about Shukadev Goswami being Radharani's parrot. How can you go from being Radharani's parrot to being a Brahmavad? My Gurudev said you can't. But for Leela, so that his father, Vyasadeva, would become inspired to purify that through his teachings. Because remember, Shukadev was in the womb for 16 years. And he said, I won't come out of the womb until Krishna comes in front of me and tells me I'm not going to be touched by Maya. So at that time, Krishna was on the planet. So Vyasadeva went, got Krishna, brought him down, sat in front of Sukadev's mother, Vitata, and promised Shukadev in the womb, you will not be affected by Maya for as long as a mustard seed can stay on the horn of a cow. How long is that? A moment. And Shukadev says, no problem, I'll take it. That was long enough for him to break out of the family of his father and mother and then just walk away. And then we hear this verse, Yam Prabhajantam Anapatyam Apatya. This verse I say every day. I once asked my Gurudev, why do you say this every day before you have a class? And he told me, he says, when you chant this verse, it means for the duration of the class, you're going to be protected by a circle that will keep any Mayic influences away. Because Shukadev, when he was walking away from his father, there was no Mayic influence whatsoever. And his father was calling out. And the verses describing only the trees were echoing back. Shukadev wasn't even hearing that. He didn't have any sense of family or attachment at all. He was given that little tiny space of freedom from the material energy. And that was enough for him to break through. And sometimes while we're chanting and while we're practicing, Krishna, Lord Jagannath, Gopinath, they give us little drops of mercy. Have you experienced sometimes a little drop of mercy comes, a realization of these truths, just ping, it just like comes. And when enough drops drop into a lake and it becomes full,
then we can realize forever these truths. But the way it works with our practice is it comes in little drops. So Shukadev Goswami had this window, this space, because of course, being freed from Maya for that amount of time, just a few moments, he would have been able to appreciate his eternal identity as the parrot of Sri Radhika, Shuka. That's who he is. So this is, and Jaiva Dharma is compared to that right in the beginning. I said before that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's following even the storyline, so to speak, of this Brahmavad or Brahmagyani. For so many years as sannyasi, Vaishnavadas, sannyasi Thakur. And he's describing it was very dry. So this is the path of Nirvishesh Brahm. And you meet lots of other people who are also Nirvishesh Brahm, and you form your sanghas, etc. And you all think, yes, this is the real thing. But then by great fortune and mercy, Krishna can somehow come through in one form or another. Sannyasi Thakur, he had the fortune, he was seeing that devotee dancing. And it's describing he was in so much ecstasy that devotee was slipping while he was chanting. And when Sannyasi Thakur heard that kirtan, he realized this devotee is getting billions of times more pleasure than I'd ever experienced. Then he started to search for the Vaishnavas. And it's also described at that time in the first chapter that he couldn't go and embrace that devotee because of his abhiman. Oh, I am a sannyasi. I am a Brahmagyani sannyasi. How can I embrace this devotee? He wanted to, but his material identity held him back. So this is how this whole book opens out, which is just like the Bhagavatam. But this point of rejecting deceptive dharmas is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks for practically all of the verses of the Falshruti. He's making this point very strongly.
One last verse is left.
Huh?
One last verse is left.
Oh. Such base and contemptible gyan, which arises out of an attempt to dismember the divine form of Bhagavan, is only fit to be rejected. Why does it dismember the divine form of Bhagavan? This Nirvishesh Brahm. Dismember, you know that word? It cuts the Lord. Because you're putting your faith on the impersonal aspect of the Lord. We know that Krishna, Vedanti Tattva Vidastatvam, Yajnanam Advayam, Brahmati, Paramatmati, Bhagavan. 3 principles, like we've discussed at length, the candle, the heat, and the light. So if you just focus on the light, which is made of what? Gyan and Vairagya. Those are the qualities in the light. Then that's not looking at Krishna's qualities. I've described before, their attributes is the English word. I don't know what word you say in Bengali. Because they're not direct qualities, Gyan and Vairagya. They're attributes of qualities. And whenever we say in the future, when someone asks, well, what are the qualities of Bhagavan? We should start off with beauty, because beauty is the principal quality. Krishna means all attractive. Everyone is attracted to Krishna. Everyone. A dog, a tree, all are ultimately attracted to Krishna. We see the trees in Vrindavan. When Krishna walks through, they all bow down and offer their obeisances. And Krishna, he's joking with Balaram, saying, look, they're all bowing down to you as we walk through the forest. And it's so beautiful. So all the trees are aware of Krishna's beauty. The beauty is so stunning. You know, if we see something beautiful, our eyes can't go away from there. So it's a very powerful quality. It's the most powerful. It's the first quality. And then we have strength, fame, and opulence, these 3. And they're all personal qualities. They all relate to the personal form of the Lord. And then the other 2, which we can say are impersonal qualities, are Gyan and Vairagya, because they're not direct attributes. So these persons who are chasing the Nirvishesh Brahm, they're focusing there and thinking that is Krishna. So that's hurtful for the Lord. The Lord is looking to the jivas and wanting to show his mercy, and the jivas are saying, no, you're nothing, you're impersonal. I'm not going to look at your qualities. That's actually hurtful. Actually, it's going to be described in the 16th chapter. That's our first offense. Krishna is there, and we turn away, like you were saying that story the other day when you teach your kids. Vimukh. We turn away from his beautiful face. He's there smiling. Look, I am the origin, the abode of all beauty in existence. Lavanamrita, it's called. There's nothing more beautiful than me. And you've turned away from me towards the illusion. And that's what we're doing in the conditioned state. But we are hearing about this with faith and gradually with mercy. It requires mercy. So we're always hungry. Where can I get the mercy from Nam, the mercy from Prasadam, the mercy from Jagannath, mercy from Gopinath, mercy from the Vaishnavas, mercy from the Holy Dham? All of these opportunities to get mercy. I'm hungry. Ganga Devi, whenever I have an opportunity to take bath or put some water on my head, always this will give mercy. And this is what the jiva needs. So much kripa. Okay, so that's our Falshruti. So now we come to our text in chapter 15, and I have it on page 345. The first, I'll read the question. I'll start from the beginning of 345, and then we'll unpack the answer. I think I read the answer a little bit, but we'll read the whole thing again because we need to hear it more.
We are at 341 actually.
Huh?
341.
Oh, I read ahead yesterday.
The first paragraph.
Oh.
I know that.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit though. The question that Brajanath has asked is, how can the jiva be eternal? If you're talking about the word manifested, and remember Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes into a whole dialogue about the limitations of English language, or any language, not just English language, but any language we use in the material world. It's bound up by the three degrees of time, which is past, present, and future. Everything in the material consideration has these influences on it about the past, but spiritual time is beyond that, beyond time and space. So how can material words describe these incredible, phenomenal topics, which are of transcendence? So the scholars and the great sadhus, they try to describe it in the language, but it's never complete, because we have to have actually realization of these truths. We hear it, and then we do our practices, and gradually, we start to get a real idea of the meaning of what the language is imparting. But that realization will be beyond material time and space. It'll be in spiritual, eternal time. Understand? So this is the topic that we're talking about. So I'll start from the top of 341 then. So the subject has been explained in this way only because the conditioned human intellect, being controlled by praman, inattentiveness, is unable to comprehend a subject matter. Yes, we're distracted. Realized sadhaks, though, experience transcendental truth through their chit samadhi. This is what I was saying. When you're doing this chanting nicely, when your mind is settled and you're enthusiastically engrossed in your practice, then the realizations of these truths can come. These realizations can't come if we're not practicing, if we haven't made a foundation, a platform. They'll come in the heart and then they'll leave immediately, because there's no baseline for them to sit on. But if we've cultivated a spiritual platform through our sadhana, through our reading, through our various devotional activities, We create a platform for these realizations to sit on. So when the realization comes, you'll be able to hold it. If the realization comes and there's no platform, it'll just boom, boom, come and be gone. And we won't be able to sit with it and appreciate it deeply. It's like that. The gift of Krishna will come, but we want to hold it. Realized sadhaks experience transcendental truth through their chit samadhi. Our words always have some material limitation. So whatever we say will have some mayic defects. My dear son, you should always endeavor to realize the pure truth. Logic and argument cannot help at all in this regard. So it is futile to use them to try to understand inconceivable subject matters. I keep saying repeatedly, we're not trying to understand these topics. You can't understand with the material mind these topics, because these topics are beyond the material understanding of time. It's like when we get into the Jiva bound by Maya in the next chapter, we can never really say, yes, I understand Jiva Tattva, because we've got no experience of eternality. The Jiva is an eternal particle, atomic particle of Krishna. And until we realize that through our practice and sadhana, these words and descriptions are supposed to give us inspiration to perform the practice so that we can have realization of these truths. If it makes you hungry to really want to know these truths, then my practice will be increased. Yes, I will want to chant more, I will want to read more, I will want to be careful with my sadhana bhajan. I know that you will not be able to understand these subjects in a moment, but as you cultivate these transcendental moods within your heart, you will realize Chinmoy Bhav more and more. In other words, all the transcendental moods, this is just like I was saying, you get these little drops of realization through your sadhana bhajan. And then eventually these little drops will form like a lake, and some understanding or some appreciation, a deeper realization will manifest in the consciousness. In other words, all the transcendental moods will manifest themselves in the core of your purified heart. The transcendental truths are already there. Just like when you look at the seed of a big tree, everything is there within the seed. Like you say, an ashwata, what do you say? Ashwata, a banyan tree. Huge, huge banyan tree. But it starts from a little seed. And within that seed actually is the embodiment of the entire tree. Just like we start from a tiny little baby, a tiny seed in the mother's womb. And then it just grows and grows from there. So similarly, these truths, they start to wake up the dormant, sleeping consciousness. We said yesterday, this udita vivek, this waking up our higher intelligence. Udita vivek. The more you know yourself, the more you will be able to realize how your swarup is a tattva superior to the world of Maya. Actually, you know what? Every single sentence of this is too powerful. You can't read this book quickly. I mean, every sentence, what he's just said there, the more you know yourself, the more you will be able to realize how your swarup is a tattva superior to the world of Maya. We've already discussed this. And this verse, Kriti Sadhya Bhavet Sadhya Bhav Sasadhana Vida, Nitya Siddhyasya Bhavasya Prakritam Visadyate. This is saying like that. This Nitya Siddhya Bhav is within the core of the heart of the Jiva eternally. But we have become influenced because we're weak. We're in this Tatashta Swabhav. And the Bal Shakti is the strength. And we get this Bal Shakti from performing our sadhana bhajan. not from making money, not from building a big house, not from having all your material desires satisfied. That's not going to increase the Bal Shakti. Actually, it'll decrease the Bal Shakti because the mind will get engrossed in external topics. But to increase that Bal Shakti, we want to become dedicated sevaks, dedicated sadhaks. Cultivate the practices of chanting Harinam as much as possible. Oh, I've missed a sentence. Even if I tell you, you will not realize it, or simply by hearing, you will not attain it. So it's not enough just to hear it, just to read it. We have to practice it. Actually, I was very fortunate in my life when I first came to Krishna consciousness. I had had many different sorts of experiences, and I only wanted an experience of this truth. That would be the only thing that would keep me in Krishna consciousness, unless I had a direct experience of it. That was why I began chanting almost immediately when I came to devotional service, and have just placed all my focus in my practice on that chanting. Because from the chanting, some experience of the reality comes. If you're not having an experience of it after 10, 15 years, you'll just drop it. If nothing's like coming alive, why am I doing this? I'm not getting any realization. I'm just, going like a robot, going to Mangalati, Samsaradava, but nothing's happening. We have to get that bhav, we have to connect. And how will that happen? Through Harinam. This is what Mahaprabhu's given. He's given us the opportunity for Raganuga Bhakti. And he's given us the weapon to purify the conditioned mind, this Hare Krishna mantra. There's nothing more powerful. You can see in your own lives, why aren't you so interested in all the other things that the kids your age are in Navadvip? Running around, what are they doing, the kids in Navadvip, Dahlia? What do the kids who don't come to the Gurukul do? You know more than me. What do they do?
Mostly they spend their time on the mobile, computer games, and
Computer
inside
games.
the room,
And then after, when they get 21, 22,
yes,
alcohol,
before
drinking.
that, even before that.
Even before that, oh my
Yeah.
God.
They started 17, 18 from there.
This is such a tragedy. But you don't have any interest, do you, Gaur, for any alcohol? No, because you're chanting Harinam. Raganuga, do you have any interest for those things? No, because you're happy playing mridanga, chanting Hare Krishna. Sumangal, no interest in these things. Braj, no. These interests have gone away. See it. You have to acknowledge the potency that Nam has had in your life. Don't just see it like it's automatic. It's not. This Harinam has entered your life and it's transformed your core desires for material exploitation. You know this word, exploitation? I want to take from the material world some type of pleasure. So see, acknowledge, yes, Nam has affected me in this way in my life. And then I can start to honor Nam more. And then I want it to transform me more and more and more. So I want to drink this beverage of Sri Nam more and more. Daily. Big, big liters of it. Not just little bits. Yeah. This Harinam practice is the core. This is what Babaji advises Sannyasi Thakur to do. This is what, when Sannyasi Thakur becomes Vaishnava Das, he advises Lahari Mahashai to do the same. Lahari Mahashai, he advises his sons.
Devahuti.
No.
Devahuti.
That's
Devadas.
Devi Das advises him to chant. Any person we meet who's having difficulty, Can you remember when you first started to chant? When you first started, and then perhaps you completed maybe 1 hour or half an hour. Can you remember when that happened?
Oh, yes.
Try to think back
I
for them.
remember the first time, but when I was very small, I used to chant like it was a very weird. It was broken mama. I used to chant, but then I remember someone, devotee. Her name was Ganga Devi. She was like my auntie. She taught me, no, this is how you chant the Maha Mantra. And I remember the first time she taught me, we were in a car and it was a 7-hour long journey, and I kept on chanting the whole entire time because every time I ended, I felt like starting a new time. And then every time I ended, I started and again and again and again, and I kept on
So
going.
So beautiful. Yes. Yes.
And
So
that's the
beautiful.
memory I had.
So don't forget these experiences. Remember these experiences, and then take deeper shelter. That's a nice experience. Yeah.
Not everyone's journey is as great as Gorangi.
Oh my God.
That's
I
true.
was not like that.
You took a long time.
Yes.
Okay. I, in my own journey, can remember just as a new boy coming to the temple and then telling me to chant, and I had these beads. And I think on the second day, I just sat down and I thought, well, I have to chant 16. That's what they're telling me to do. And I went through very, very carefully. And I was thinking in my mind of, all the great historic Indian heroes and so on, and I was thinking about Sankirtan and different things. And then I remember looking, I finished 16, it took about 3 hours to do. But I remember feeling so, like this feeling. It's the feeling that will give you the faith. If you have a feeling for these truths, not just a mental idea, but a feeling, an experience, that's what's going to keep us here. That's what's going to keep us chanting forever. As you go on chanting Hari Nam, these transcendental bhavs will begin to manifest in your heart, right, Garangi? Automatically, and to the degree that they do so, you will be able to realize the transcendental world. Be able to realize it, not understand it, but realize it, have realization of these things. We want realization. It's called paramatik shraddha. There's lokik shraddha, which is like earthly faith in different material things. Then there's paramatik shraddha. Paramatik shraddha means when my soul, when the deepest part of myself is having faith in these topics. And I know without any doubt that this is the truth, the absolute truth. Paramatik shraddha. We want that faith. Paramatik shraddha. And that will come through realization, like you just described. So from that experience, that paramatik shraddha, maybe even just a little seed of it will have started to sprout. It's like with Raghunath Das, when he meets Haridas Thakur when he's a young boy. He's only about 7 or 8 years old, and he meets Haridas Thakur, comes to his house, Govardhan Majumdar's house. And you didn't go there yet, I don't think, to his house. It's very close to where you are. It's in Paharganj, these, what do you call it, 24 sections of Calcutta, just north. I forgot the name of it. Panihati, it's close to Panihati. Yeah. Anyway, Raghunath Das went there as a young boy and met Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur, it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, opens the seed of renunciation in Raghunath Das's heart. Because Raghunath Das is so renounced all his life, but he got that renunciation seed from Haridas Thakur. So it comes from the Guru Parampara. Someone is going to ignite it, that seed, that we want to grow this seed more and more, this Bhakti Lata Bij. Do you remember what I said the other day about humility? What does the Bhakti Lata Bij have to? Yes, it has to go on there. As you go on chanting Hari Nam, these transcendental bars will begin to manifest in your heart automatically. And to the degree that they do so, you will be able to realize the transcendental world. Mind and speech both have their origin in matter. Important to understand, mind and speech, they're about matter. This is the point that he's saying in this particular place. Mind and speech, Mind and speech both have their origin in matter, and they cannot touch the transcendental truth, even with the greatest endeavor. You can't crash the gates of heaven with your material mind. Just because you want that, it doesn't mean it's going to give it to you. It's by the mercy, this avaroha panta, descending. That is only the ingredient that's going to influence us into that transcendental world. Nothing else will do that. Mind and speech both have their origin in matter, and they cannot touch the transcendental truth, even with the greatest endeavor. The Vedas say in Taittiriya Upanishad,
यतो वाचो निवर्तन्ते अप्राप्य मनसा सह
the speech and mind return from Brahm, being unable to attain him. Yes, you can't attain him. Even the Devas can't attain Krishna because they're not connecting transcendentally. They're very powerful personalities and they have their material services, but they can't connect with transcendence. Transcendence is another realm altogether, even with their great material abilities and strength. They can't reach transcendence. I advise you not to inquire about this matter from anyone, because Rajanath has asked, I think, 3 or 4 questions about Mayavad conceptions. And now Babaji is saying, don't go into the general market asking these types of questions. You're not going to get the real answer. You have to go to the realized sadhus, or you have to come to the Grantha, this perfect book, to get these truths. Don't just ask anybody. I advise you not to inquire about this matter from anyone, but to realize it yourself. I have just given you an indication, a bas. So this is all of these conceptions that we're getting. We're getting an indication, right? By hearing this. And now it's up to us to actually manifest it quickly or slowly. It's your choice. However you want to go on the path, you can go like a tortoise very slowly, but it's dangerous to go slow. If you go too slow, many distractions might grab you and distract. So we want to get some speed up, to move along this path. That enthusiasm needs to be there. Rajanath, you have explained that the jiva is like a spark of a burning fire or an atomic particle in the rays of the spiritual sun. What is the role of jiva shakti in this? So if the jiva is like a spark coming from Krishna, so where is this jiva shakti? We have, it's coming from chit. So chit is like the spiritual sun. And from the spiritual sun, this jiva shakti is manifesting. So he's saying, what is the role of jiva shakti in this? How does that work? This is a very big question. Babaji, Krishna, who in these examples is compared to the blazing fire or the sun, is a self-manifest tattva. Krishna is a self-manifest tattva. He's not manifested by any shakti or anything. He's separately manifest. Krishna has always been in existence. Within the compass of that blazing fire or sun, in other words, Krishna, everything is a spiritual manifestation. So everything within Krishna is only manifesting as a pure spiritual manifestation. Now the Jiva Shakti is going to be manifesting from that, because the Jiva Shakti, so to speak, has some contamination there. We're going to be contaminated by Maya. This is the nature of Jiva Shakti. This is the Jivas in this world. In Goloka Vrindavan and Vaikuntha, they don't have that contamination because they're not Tatastha Shakti. Only we are that Tatastha Shakti. These rays are the fractional function, anukarya, of the Swarup Shakti. And the rays within the fractional function are paramanu, atomic particles of the spiritual sun. In other words, we are a part of Krishna. We have that same Sat Chit Ananda potency that Krishna has, because we're coming from him. We're a fractional function of that Swarup Shakti. This is what it's saying. We have that particle of God consciousness, of God qualities, we can say is better. The qualities of God, that Sat Chit Ananda. We have that also, but it's very, very tiny. It's atomic, but we have it still. We've described like the fire, the sparks. They have the power of the fire, right? The spark, but it's not the fire. But that spark can create a huge fire. So similarly, with our realization of our spiritual nature, we can actually nourish so many conditioned souls to appreciate the reality of their existence. This is what we need to think about. These rays are the fractional function, anukarya, of the Swarup Shakti, and the rays within that fractional function are paramanu, atomic particles of the spiritual sun. The jivas are compared to this very localized atomic tattva. Swarup Shakti manifests the world within the sphere of the spiritual sun, and the function outside the sphere of the sun is carried out by Jiva Shakti. That's very clear. So it's manifesting from the Chit Shakti, from Krishna directly, and when it's coming outside of the sphere, this is what it's saying, when it's coming, the Jiva is, Swarup Shakti manifests the world within the sphere of the spiritual sun, and the function outside the sphere of the sun is carried out by Jiva Shakti. So when it's outside, away from the spiritual sun, then it becomes Jiva Shakti. It's like Krishna lets us go on our own, so to speak. Why? Because we have independence, because Krishna has independence. Independence is a part of the Jiva's nature. If the Jiva didn't have independence, he couldn't love. The Jiva has to choose himself ultimately to love. You can never be forced to love anybody. You can't be forced to even love Thakurji. Someone may tell you, well, this, but you have to find for yourself. You can't be forced to love Harinam. You have to find it out yourself, like you described just now. You found that taste yourself. If anyone had said anything, okay, they can say it, but if I don't have the experience of it, then it doesn't become realized. So Krishna wants us to become realized, to perform Leela with him. So he lets us go, just like with a child. You have to let a child go at a certain stage. You're educating a child, you bring them up, and then at some point, yes, the child has to go by itself and discover for itself how to navigate through the world. And the mother and father just, they watch that, even if it's bad or whatever. You can't, like Antaryami, the super soul, never interferes with the jiva. Antaryami is there all the time, but doesn't come saying, hey, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Antaryami is not like that. It may guide you, but it doesn't, not even Krishna. And Guru also. Certainly my Gurudev. Sometimes he would just say to me, I request you to do this. He was never demanding. Ever, he was never demanding. You have to do this. That's interfering with my independence. My Guru was trying to encourage my independent growth. So I would independently want to render that service. If you do something with independence, like if you clean this room, for example, Aditya, you feel you just inspired to do it, then you'll feel very happy to do that. But if Subal comes and said, you have to clean the room, I don't want to clean it. Well, you know. But still you do it, but you don't feel the same. There's an expression in English that independence will turn sand into gold. You go on your independent journey, but at the same time, it has to be guided. We have to acknowledge the sadhus. Why do they make the rules and regulations? The sadhus make these rules and regulations out of their complete compassion, because they know that these guidelines will help the jiva to achieve that prayojan tattva. They will assist him to do that. So they put down the guidelines of if someone completely chooses to ignore all the rules and regulations, they're going to have a lot of difficulties and problems, either in the immediate or later on. They have to actually follow carefully, and then no problems will. But independently, we want to decide to choose to do that. Not that I'm demanded to do this. It doesn't really work, especially as you get a little bit older, when someone is demanding this. Outside the sphere of the sun is carried out by Jiva Shakti, which is the direct partial representation of Chit Shakti. Very important. Jiva Shakti is the direct partial representation of Chit Shakti. Chit Shakti is the complete, the Purna. And Jiva Shakti is coming from that. It's a partial representation from that. Therefore, the activities related to the jiva are those of Jiva Shakti. Yes, whatever is related to us is about Jiva Shakti. It's not about Chit Shakti, because we kind of separated from that through our forgetfulness. When we become transcendentally realized, we'll embody much more of that Chit Shakti. We'll become more like that sun in our self-control, in our abilities to serve Krishna. Understand? So this is interesting, because I was thinking the last few days how to understand Chit Shakti and Jiva Shakti coming from Chit Shakti. So this is explaining perfectly here, if we can understand it or if we can appreciate it. Therefore, the activities related to the jiva are those of Jiva Shakti. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Suryate. That Achintya Shakti is called Parashakti. Yes, that inconceivable, astonishing. Although it is one, this innate potency, Svabhavika Shakti, has manifold varieties based on Gyan, spiritual knowledge, Bal, spiritual strength, and Kriya, spiritual activities. So it comes into different headings, different aspects of this Jiva Shakti. We have in this map, we have the Jiva Shakti there, or Tatastha Shakti, and then it's the Jiva's minute form, and then Brahma Gyan is what is manifesting, and the manifestation of the Brahmand in the Hladini Shakti. So these three, and the first is Bal Shakti, that minute spiritual particle. Then this Brahma Gyan is like the Chit Shakti, or the Gyan Shakti, the Gyan knowledge. And then the Hladini, or the Anand, or the Kriya, is the Brahmand. This map is very, very helpful to try and get these. You're going to have to teach this sometime. So we have to kind of like know it to some degree, know the language of it, and know the difficulties in actually realizing it. Bal Shakti and Kriya Shakti spiritual activities. Shvetashvara Upanishad 6.8. According to the aphorism of Shruti, the Chit Shakti is a manifestation of the Parashakti. Chit Shakti is coming from the topmost Shakti, Parashakti. Para means topmost. So from that topmost Shakti is coming the Chit Shakti, as well as the Sat Shakti as well as the Hladini Shakti. These three functions are coming from the Para Shakti. Although it is one, the innate potent, oh, I just read that. According to the aphorism of Shruti, the Chit Shakti is a manifestation of the Para Shakti. It emanates from its own sphere, the spiritual realm. Everything emanating from Chit Shakti is coming from its own place, from the spiritual realm. As the Jiva Shakti, it manifests from the Chit Shakti and becomes the Jiva Shakti. It emanates from its own sphere, the spiritual realm, as the Jiva Shakti, and in the marginal region between the spiritual and material worlds, it manifests innumerable eternal jivas who are like atomic particles in the rays of the spiritual sun. Whew. That's a real paragraph to digest, really and truly. I mean, every single sentence in there is very, very profound. But we get something of a picture. And the basic picture that I'm understanding today, appreciating, is that the Chit Shakti is manifesting from Swarup Shakti and from Paratattva, and from the Chit Shakti, which is fully Paratattva, fully spiritual, like the sun, planet, etc., complete. But the rays that come from there and the Shakti that comes from that, Jiva Shakti, is coming from there. And all these Jivas are atomic particles coming from there. Brajanath. May not have time to finish this question. Brajanath, a burning fire, the sun, sparks, and the atomic particles of sunshine, these are all material objects. Why hasn't a comparison been made with these material objects in the discussion of Chit Tattva? So we've already gone over that. Why is Brajanath asking this question again? For us. Because we're stupid. So a second time around, he's asking the same question again. The answer is because we have no other language to use to make these descriptions. There's no other words to describe it. Babaji, as I have already said, inevitably there are material defects in any material statements we make about Chit Tattva. That's very wonderful to appreciate. That means the Chit Tattva is so transcendental. It can't be approached with a mundane mind and mundane words. So I'm ready to give it so much honor now, because it's the same potency as Krishna himself. So when I think Chit Shakti, I think something very much more beautiful than I felt previously, just like a description of a word with material language. But it's way beyond that, isn't it? And the very good example that you should remember ever to describe these topics is the one about the frog in the well. I've said it many times, when the frog is trying to imagine how big is the ocean. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada used to tell this story all the time. And the frog, it puffs its chin up. He says, is it 10 times bigger than the well? Then is it 20 times bigger than the well? Is it 100 times big? And then it pops its bubble because it can't understand. It can't go to that place of transcendence with its material calculation. It's beyond there. So this is the way that Babaji is answering this same question again. But what alternatives do we have? We are obliged to use these examples because we are helpless without them. Yes, we're obliged to use the mind because that's all we have to reach the soul. We don't have any other instrument. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says another time, he says the mind is the only instrument that we have to reach the transcendental soul. We don't have any other recourse except the mind. So we're obliged to use these examples because we are helpless without them. We have to pacify the mind, encourage the mind to go this direction. Therefore, those who know Tattva try to explain Chidvastu by comparing it to a fire or the sun. In reality, Krishna is far superior to the sun. Krishna's effulgence is far superior to the radiance of the sun. Sometimes it's described that Krishna looks like 1,000,000 suns. So we only have experience of one sun. But sometimes Krishna is described as being, but he's even beyond 1 million suns. Can we appreciate that? It's very wonderful meditation, you know. It picks the consciousness up. The Krishna rays and the I'll read it again. Krishna is far superior to the sun. Krishna's effulgence is far superior to the radiance of the sun. And Krishna's rays and the atoms in them, that is the Jiva Shakti, and the Jivas are far superior to the rays of the sun and the atomic particles in the rays. Still, these examples have been used because there are many similarities within them. So I'm going to stop there. So we're using this language because that's the best thing we can do to talk to the mind. We have to talk to the mind in language, but we want to come into the heart. And we become in the heart through our sadhana. When we have these profound realizations from our sadhana, from the chanting, etc., that you describe, you had a realization of the speciality and sweetness of the Mahamantra. So that comes into the heart region. We want to come into the heart region. We're doing a lot of discussion on tattva, but at some point we want this tattva to come into the heart, to have the realizations of the greatness of Chit Shakti for a start, the greatness of Parashakti we've discussed, and what is the nature of this Jiva Shakti that's coming from Chit Shakti. That's what we've been discussing. Okay? Not so easy. But you're very patient, and I'm very proud of you for being so patient and attentive. All mercy must come to you, for sure. It must come for you. It must. Okay. Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Such a saintly personality. Knowing Sanskrit, knowing Farsi, knowing Bengali, Hindi, so many different languages. He would read through all the Sanskrit texts so that he could give us full knowledge. There's a place actually in Puri, there's a library with many of his writings in, you know, because he studied here himself. He studied all the works of Jiva Goswami. And he studied so much so he could give us this tattva in its complete. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Golf Premanandi, Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bevacha, Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.